Turkey season 2022 has been a really special season for us this year. One of the initiatives coming into 2022 that Spence had for us was to grow and expand the Rolling Thunder team so that we could be in more places at a time. So while Spence and Keelan and the boys were in South Dakota trying to wrap up their Grand Slam and RT was in Pennsylvania for Nancy's Vision, I had a chance to chase a couple Arkansas boys to Indiana to try to kill an Eastern on some family ground. So this trip to Indiana really started out with a trip to Stuttgart. And that's where I met Taylor Sweeten and Cody Clemens at Taylor's Duck Camp. And the more we got a chance to talk, the more I learned about their annual trip that they take every year to different states across the country to try to kill turkeys together. By the end of our conversation, they were asking me if I wanted to go too. Of course, I said yes, and when they started kind of throwing around ideas about what states they'd like to go to, Indiana came up. And when they said Indiana, I kind of smiled because my dad's from Indiana, and I figured that with a couple phone calls, I'd probably have an opportunity to talk to some of my family up there and maybe get some permission on some ground. And we started to call some of my relatives up there, and it wasn't long before we locked up permission on some ground. And also, we started to get some pins from them and some places that we needed to check out because they had seen turkeys. And Cody and Taylor were already in the area because they had drawn tags in Illinois, and it wasn't long that they were in Illinois that they had killed two great gobblers. And so they went ahead and went on to the area that we were going to be hunting in Indiana. On my way, I get a phone call from Taylor, and he had gone to one of the pins that my Uncle Denny had given him. And he calls me, and he's like, "Rob, there's turkeys everywhere." And I gotta admit, there was a part of me that was really relieved when I heard there was turkeys there because, man, when you put something like this together and you put a trip together, there's always that little part of you that's nervous that it's not going to be what you expect, or you're going to have all these guys looking at you like, "Rob, I thought you said there was gobblers up here." So I was excited and encouraged by that. So once I finally got up there and had a chance to check in with my family, we started driving roads, and it wasn't long after that we started finding a couple different places that had gobblers, and we started to kind of get a sense of where we were in the area. So that night, we went back to the hotel, and we kind of drew up a plan of where we were going to be and where we were going to set up. So that next morning, we went ahead and dropped Dalton off at his spot, and then Taylor and Cody and I went to ours, and we set up probably about 5 o'clock. And it wasn't long after we set up that they started gobbling and yelping on the roost. And the gobblers were going off. We probably heard 2 or 3, and then there were some jakes that we could see and hear as well. We could hear some hens kind of softly yelping in the trees. And it's one of those things where it's not a done deal, but just being in the game is just huge. And so the jakes flew down, the gobbler flew down, and the jakes are doing jake stuff, and the gobbler's just blowing the top off of it. And it was all kind of stayed around in that same type of mood. And then all of a sudden, when the hens hit the ground, it was like a light switch hit, and it was game on. So here comes the hens up the hill. Right behind them is the gobbler, and right behind them is probably 5 or 6 jakes just doing jake things. And he's strutting and gobbling and spitting, and he's coming up the hill, and he comes up to this crest of the hill, and he just kind of hangs up there, and he just kind of stops. I mean, he's gobbling his head off. And then, a little bit later, here come the jakes, this little procession of jakes. They come down and they start kicking the decoy and running circles around the decoy. And for whatever reason, probably just because he was happy with his girls, the gobbler stayed up on the hill, and we just sat there and watched these jakes for a while. And so we just kind of let him ease on out and do his thing. And we just knew that, if we had a chance to maybe come back that afternoon, we would, because again, this is day one. We haven't even been in Indiana for 24 hours, so we felt good about our chances, we felt good about our prospects, and we didn't want to make a move early that could risk bumping them hard and scaring them out of there. That afternoon, we stuck to the plan. Taylor and Cody and I parked down at the barn, and we got all of our stuff on, and we started walking, and we didn't get 200 yards before we entered the field. And no sooner did Taylor step into the field than was there a turkey kind of back and behind in a little corner, and he just kind of freezes. and takes a couple steps back, and he goes, "Turkey's in the field, turkey's in the field." And, you know, it was really evident in that moment that Taylor and Cody had hunted a lot together because they just went straight into game mode. And the person trying to video the whole thing here was not on the same page with them. And, you know, when you start making turkey sounds, turkeys start doing turkey things, and they don't wait for cameras. And man, these turkeys just completely caught us off guard. And Cody had a great shot, and he took it. Taylor was fired up, Cody was fired up. Man, we were jacked. We hadn't even been in Indiana for 24 hours, and bam, we already have one longbeard on the ground. And so we went back and we took a couple pictures at the barn down there. We had heard 2 or 3 other gobblers in the vicinity that morning. We just decided that we would stick to the plan and go to where we were gonna sit before Cody shot his bird. So we're sitting there and pretty well hidden, and I've got Taylor in front of me and I've got Cody off my left shoulder, and you know, Cody's back there taking a pretty aggressive afternoon nap. And who would have thought that it would have been Cody who was the one who had seen the turkey come in. I had a blind spot on my right side with the tree, and Cody wakes up, and then I hear this, "Gobbler on the right, gobbler on the right. It's a longbeard, he's in full strut," you know, trying to get my attention. And sure enough, here he comes, right from my right, comes out from around the tree, and man, he just comes in strutting all the way to the decoy, everything you want to see a turkey do. Taylor was able to put a great shot on it, and after he did, he pretty much lost it. So it felt really good walking out of that field that day with our second longbeard of the afternoon, and really special to be walking back out in front of that red barn to take another picture with 2 gobblers. So this trip was special for a lot of reasons, not the least of which the fact that I got to spend a whole lot more time with my family and get to have dinners with them and get to spend some time with them after 15 years of not really being there. Not only that, Taylor got a bird, Cody got a bird, and Dalton got a bird as well. And turkey season is just special, and Wild Turkey has a way of bringing folks together, and it's certainly been the case where there's so many people in my life that maybe wouldn't have been in it or wouldn't have been as big a part of it if it wasn't for the Wild Turkey. And even though the Wild Turkey is what brought me to Indiana this time around, it's not going to be the thing that brings me back in the future, and I'm grateful for that. What you got?
A freaking bird, dude. Indiana's been too good to us.